Going live.
Hey y'all, I am James Wright and welcome to the shop. We are going to be doing the bridal joint tonight. Yes, and that's bridal as in not getting married.
It was just our anniversary, though.
Yes, yeah, it was our anniversary just the other day, Saturday. 17 years. Feels like it was just yesterday. So, if you are new to the Wood by Right Live, we take the first few minutes and we talk about things coming up in the woodworking world, and then we will dive into this. So, let us go through it. We have quite a pile of them. First up, I did an interview earlier this week on the podcast called Questions We Were Afraid to Ask. Kind of a really cool podcast, a little newer, but they bring in different people from different places and ask them some of those interesting questions you just don't want to ask, but they're kind of fun. So I'll leave a link to that down in the description. Also, tomorrow is the sharpening class with Rex and Ann and myself. And so we have a 2-hour-long class where I am actually going to be demonstrating sharpening on a concrete block. I'm going to be talking about the theory. Rex is going to be going into different modes of sharpening and different medias to use. Anne is then going to be demonstrating sharpening different tools and how the application all comes together. And then we'll have a half an hour at the end for question and answer. So it will be a slightly smaller class, but we do have a few slots left in it. So if you are interested in that, go to woodbywright.com/class. Otherwise, there's a link in the description as well. Other events coming up. June 14th through the 17th is the National MWTCA meet, the largest antique tool sale in the world. That will be in Green Bay, Wisconsin. You do have to be an MWTCA member to go to any of the MWTCA meets. Most of the tool meets are held by clubs, and to go to them, you have to be a member of the club. Yes. Next up is July 16th. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. That will be at the Patina tool meet. Patina is another club for the Potomac area. Not Potomac. Yeah, Potomac. Around Washington, D.C. Then there is, Greenworks with Rex. I'm still waiting on the final announcement, but that is going to be July 29th in Ohio. I'm really looking forward to doing that. I'm going to be talking there. There's going to be a bunch of other people doing some really cool, interesting things about green woodworking. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to find out more about that, Rex's website is where to go. Next, we have Handworks. If you go to one event anywhere in the world this year, it is Handworks. It's in Amana, Iowa on September the 1st through the 2nd. It's an entire town dedicated to hand tools for 2 days. And so every hand tool maker that's out there will be there selling and demonstrating. You can play with the tools and experiment what they are actually for. There are demonstrations. There are barns set aside for people just to show different skills. There are collections on display. There are antiques tools for sale. All of the names in the hand tool world will be there. Roy Underhill will be the keynote speaker. It is just an amazing 2 days and a lot of fun. It only happens every couple years, and it's been like 6 years since the last one. So, yay! September 16th, Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be able to be at that one. It's an MWTCA tool meet, but it's one I've been wanting to go to. It's one of the larger ones in the South, hosted by Ed. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then September 28th through the 30th is the second MWTCA national meet. And this will be in Des Moines, Iowa. So lots of things happening in the Iowa area. So stay tuned for that. And with all that being said, now we can finally get into the process. If you are watching this recorded, then any of the questions asked will be down in the description down below, and so you can read through those and jump around if you want to. But if you're watching this live, then feel free to put your questions into the chat, and my wife will organize them for us. And let's get into this. So what exactly is a bridle joint? A bridle joint is a tenon that is open on 3 sides. So you flip out. Ooh, we need to focus that. So a bridle joint is this one here. So you've got the tenon in the middle, and then you've got the mortise that houses it. However, the mortise goes all the way around. So this board here has the mortise, and this board has the tenon. And it's open on this side. And the nice thing about that is it constrains it. So this board can't go any farther that way. This board can't go any farther that way. There's 2 directions that have been constrained, as opposed to the half lap, which we did last week, this one, it can't go that way and it can't go that way, but this one can still go up and down. The bridle joint, on the other hand, also stops the third dimension. Now I can still slide out this way, or I can slide this one out that way, and there are other joints that we can do to minimize that, but we're going to be doing this. Now once you can do this, a bridle joint is the next step in joinery. If you can make a half lap is the basic joint. The next step is the bridle joint, and a bridle joint is basically 2 half laps on both boards. On the tenon side, you have the 2 half laps on the outside, and on the mortise side, you have the 2 half laps on the inside. Then the next step up is making a full mortise and tenon, which we'll be doing that one. We'll be doing that one next week, so that will be this one. And the full mortise and tenon is it's kind of the basic joint. Once you can make one thing slot into another, you realize that everything you do is one board slotting into another, and so if you can master that, you can master all of them. What?
Oh, I just keep getting chills. I'm sorry.
So we need boards 3 and 4 for this one. And also, I was hoping to have a PDF of all of the measurements for this, but I didn't get that put together yet. So hopefully by the next time that will be together, but don't hold your breath because we're going to be gone a lot between now and then. But if you do want to actually have the plans, I have a SketchUp file you can download for free on my website. There should be a link to that in the description. There are lots of links down below. Go read through all the links because there's a lot of information.
Did Zelda put you on a mission?
Zelda?
Lots of links.
Speaking
I
of
got
Tears of
good
the
wife
Kingdom,
points for that one, didn't I?
my son and I have been on a Tears of the Kingdom binge this last week, so. Been about 2 weeks now. Yes, so let's actually get into this. We're going to need a mortising gauge. A mortising gauge is a marking gauge with 2 pins. And then we need to find out what chisel we're going to put down the middle. And I'm going to be using my 1/4" mortising chisel. A mortising chisel is just like a regular bench chisel, other than it is much, much taller. So it cuts, that's its thickness, but it's that tall. And that gives you the ability to lever and really pry on things without this bending. Mortising gauge has either 2 wheels or 2 pins that you can put on either side of it. To set this up and actually set the measurements, there are a couple different ways you can do it. The most common traditional method is you put your 2 pins on your chisel, you set those apart, and then you set your fence. The problem with that is I find that when setting the fence, I move the pins around. So I'm going to crank this in. Someday we'll get there.
Nah, you're just really cranky.
There's a reason I would love to get a twin turbo vise someday.
Did you just say a twin turtle?
Twin turbo.
Oh.
Really, really cool vise.
I was like, what does a turtle
But,
have
that
to
won't
do?
fit on my current bench, and my current bench won't. My shop doesn't have a space for a bigger bench, so I'm gonna have to wait until the day that I get a bigger shop to beat a twin turbo vise. So what I like to do is put the chisel on here and figure out where's the middle of the board, and I'll put 1 mark here. Then with the chisel in place, move around, put the mark on the other side. And now I have 2 marks that are exactly the same thickness apart as my chisel, and they are placed where I want them on the board. This makes it a lot easier. Let me see which side is my mark. It's this side. This side is my reference face. So now with this one, I can come in here and I can put the 2 pins. I can put one of them into 1 mark, slide the other one over, put it into that mark, push those down in, slide this over, and then lock the fence down. And because that's all set up, I now know it's all exactly where it should be. And this is the same thickness as my chisel. With the 2 wheel, it's a little bit easier because you can set one at a time. The far one I'm going to put over here, slide that over, lock it down. And then the closer one, you can set that one. I like having the 2 separate screws for either side. It makes everything so much simpler. And especially with this one, it's really hard to get the chisel on here because they're in 2 different planes. So how do you measure it out? On this. So this will then give us the tenon thickness, or the mortise thickness, we now need to find how deep do we want this to go. And the best way to do that is with the other board. If this board is going into this board, I want the tenon to be as deep as this board is wide. And same as I want the mortise to be as deep as this board is wide. So I can set these on here. Focus. And I can drop my tools on the floor. I'm going to line this up so it's smooth on this side here. And I'm going to put a tick on here. Just a light cut. Actually, on this one I'm going to square it across. I'm going to put my knife on here. So I can go right into that hole I just created, slide the square up against it, and I'm marking this one. So this one will be my tenon, and I'm going to run that board all the way around. I'm going to keep the fence of this square on my reference face. It's the face of the tape. And last time I referenced this edge, that's my reference edge, put the knife into the tick mark, slide the square up against the knife, and then light, medium, hard, and I'm going to roll it back over. But I don't want the square to be on this side because the fence references this edge, and I don't want to. I want it to reference my reference face. So the square flips over. I'm going to put my knife into the tick mark, push it up against, and play connect the dots. That one's marked all the way around. This one, on the other hand, this one, is going to be a little bit different. On this one, I don't want to mark here because this is going to be my mortise. So I'm going to lift it up, and I'm going to put this mark here, and I'm going to flip it over, and put this mark here. And now I have my depth stops for my mortise and my depth stops for my tenon. Any questions so far? I'm just going to make these a little bit deeper.
Not related to the project.
Okay. We'll hit some off projects at the end because we'll have a little extra time on this one. There's my depth stops. Now we need to actually mark them. And I actually like to use the pin gauge. I find I enjoy it a little bit more. I went down just a little too low. There we go.
Just so you know, we had a super chat.
We did?
We did.
What does the super chat say?
Idle Hands Workshop says, just wanted to express how grateful I am for all the knowledge you two share with everyone.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot. I will make sure to keep the videos coming. So thank you. You got a mom joke? Because if you don't, I got a joke that I
Go for it. I didn't have mine pulled up. I have one eventually, but go right ahead.
I got a joke just a few minutes ago.
You can really tell he's been saving for this when he's like,
I got this joke. Let's see. It's from Brett Shigong. Sorry. I totally butchered that one. But why does a milking stool only have 3 legs?
Why?
Because the cow's got the udder.
You say my jokes aren't good.
I love it. Oh, yes. So thanks, Brett.
So is the bridal joint love one another?
Love one another, yes.
No, I was telling them, I said, what do you call a nice bridal joint?
What?
Well groomed.
So next up, we grab a tenon saw. A tenon saw has rip cut teeth and has a deeper cut because it's designed for cutting the tenon. And so you want to go down far enough into the saw, into the board, that you actually get down to the tenon. I'm going to open this up, rotate the board 90 degrees. And it's very rare in a project where you just have one joint to do. Most of the time, you end up with 10. I did some half laps earlier today, and we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 of them. And it's kind of like a rinse and repeat, but we're going to be doing things live, so you actually get to see more than one. So you get to see less than, you get to see one. You set this up.
I just always love when you say rinse and repeat as you stick your bald head into the frame.
Why did you suddenly turn off? There we go. Ah! Someday I'll spend another $1,000 and get another good camera.
More super chats for the camera.
Yes. Let's see. This one is the tenon, so I need to stay on the outside of my lines. Here, let me darken these a little bit so you guys can see. I don't know if that helps the camera at all.
Which camera do you think is on?
The one that's not on.
Okay.
It's always on the one that's not on. So I'm going to start by pinching the outside, and I'm going to make sure I stay on the outside of the line. Once I get established on the far side, I start bringing it down and working my way across the face. Do I have a tooth out of line? Yeah, I got one tooth that's a little out of line, so that means it's going to jam here. Just have to be a little softer with it. I could stop and sharpen it, but you guys don't want to hear the saw. So once I have it established across the top, I'm going to start working it down so I can connect the dots from here to the far side. Actually, I'm going to lift it up a little bit higher so I'm not bending down quite so far. And I'll lift you up a little bit more. And focus. Hey, look at that. I can really tell this one is waving a bit inside. So I'm forcing it, trying to speed up. Anytime you force the saw, it tends to twist a bit inside the cut. There's one side. Whoop. Caught my finger. Established across, we're going to cut down again at an angle. Now that we've cut at an angle this way, we can take it off, turn it, and cut the angle the other way. Thankfully now, we actually have, is that off my line? That was off my line a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of cleanup work on this one. That's fine. Now I have it established, so I can just start down this side. Connect the dots corner to corner this way, and now we can come straight down. Is this one really that tight? Oh. I've got a bend in mine. That's why I'm having an issue. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it is bent. And that's going to cause it to veer a bit more inside the cut too. And it's really binding up on me. So, when things stick, lube. This is just some simple paste wax. I like to use a harder wax on there. Oh. It's amazing what happens when you lube it up. Second one. And there's that one. Now, we're going to do the same thing over again. Except for rather than cutting the tenon, we're cutting the mortise. So we have to stay on the other side of the lines. On that one, we're staying on the outside of the lines. This one, we move on to the inside of the lines. But it's the exact same maneuver.
Wait. Do that again, because I think you got halfway through the YMCA.
I could never keep up with that one. It's always, wah, yeah, see, no.
It's like you and jumping.
Yeah, I can't do jumping jacks. I don't know why, but every time I attempt jumping jacks, it just falls apart. Okay, other side of the line this time.
Which camera?
I'm going to be on this one to show.
Okay, just making sure.
Turn it a little bit this way so you can see me. You can see me. There we go. I want to show body mechanics in this one. I like to do one where you can see the up close and one where you can see the whole thing in place. Establish the far side. Start to draw it back. And we're in place. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some work to this saw before I use it again next time. I probably won't. I'll probably use it 3 or 4 more times before I just kind of mess with it. And I do that just to irritate some people out there who are perfectionists. Because I'm not one of those. At least not when it comes to woodworking. I am a perfectionist about some things, such as picking a wife. After 17 years, you think I would have used that one before, but I don't think I have. I probably have.
Okay, Dennis Miko's asking, are you cross-cutting or ripping?
Ripping. Ripping is going with the grain. Cross-cutting is going across the grain. Imagine if this was a bunch of straws. You could rip it, but you couldn't rip it this way. This would be cross-cutting, so you could rip it that way. Rip it. Rip it good. Corner to corner, straight down. And we're good. One more. This is the hardest part of most any joints, is
Now,
cutting the cheeks.
would you have marked which ones you are...
What's that?
Would you mark the sides?
Would I mark the sides?
Yeah, because some of them you're removing the cheek and...
I marked the sides on this one, which is
You
the
did?
tenons.
Okay. I was trying
This
to
one's the
remember.
mortise.
Okay.
Corner to corner. Straight down. There you go. Now we need to remove what is left inside. And we are going to start with the tenon, because that's the easier of the two, for the most part. And I'm going to be grabbing a crosscut saw. In this case, I'm using a sash saw, similar in size to a tenon saw, but with a crosscut tooth. A little bit smaller in most dimensions. And we'll put this in sticking out the edge here.
I was just imagining how you would move the saw and make it a sachet for your shorts.
Focus. There you go. Flip over to this one. Same thing here. I'm going to start by pinching the board. Let the saw slide on the thumbnail. Start on the far side, let it establish, and then slowly bring the saw across the line. Down the cut here. And close. Just like removing a loose tooth. Yeah, I can see this one is wavy. I've got a high spot here and a low spot here, so it was going all over the place inside there. That is fine. We'll fix it. And let's do the same thing on the other side. There we go. Now, we need to remove the material in here. One of the best ways you can do to check that is use a square or even your chisel, set it on one side and then bring it across. And it should touch here and here. And if there is a gap in the middle, that's okay, as long as there isn't a high spot in the middle. This side's actually pretty good. Oh, I got a little high spot here. Thankfully, that one's an easy one to remove. So let me grab a couple tools. Since it's on the outside here, I'm going to take a regular bench plane, just set it on here. Whoa, that's all clogged up.
So why would you use that instead of a block plane?
I like a bench plane, is just easier to handle. This one's caught. I mean, what's it caught on? I don't know. Sometimes a chip of wood just gets stuck there, and it will cause everything else to jam up around it. I think that was this case. should feel about right.
Which camera do you want to be on?
Just trying to figure this one out. I'm going to set that aside because that plane's causing me issue for right now. Let's get my favorite. I
Has
know this one's set
performance
up,
anxiety.
yeah. There we go. That's nice and clean. So we can go back over to this, and I can make sure. Nope, I got a little bit of a high spot here. I'm good there. I'm good there. I'm good all the way out there. Just have a little bit of a high spot here. So in this case, I can just come in with that. Remove the offending fibers. I could have come in with a router plane. A lot of people like to do that. I'm not a huge fan of using the router plane on tenons. Some people do, some people don't. This one though, this one needs a lot of work. This one I've got a big belly here, and this is rocking, so I have to go up to here to touch it, and back and forth. It's actually move this down a little bit.
Whoa.
See if I can show you this a little clearer.
It's like putting a GoPro in a toddler.
If I have that on right. There we go. And so in this case, I've got a big belly here. So I could come in and just trim up the space back at the back by the shoulder. And if I make sure that I'm good here, and I still have even a little more than that. There we go, that's good. If I make sure I'm good here, then I can come in with the bench plane. It's just the bench plane can't get all the way tight up against this. If I have a rabbiting plane, I could use that. But in all honesty, this is usually the method I do it. I find that just to be a little easier to clean that up and then come into the regular bench plane. It's sitting there. I don't need anything special. And that one's good. Now, I set it on my chisel, and it's a good bit thicker. So I'm at the right thickness here. And I'm still a little bit fat here. And so I'm going to check my line. And sure enough, I'm a little bit off my line. So I'm going to go right into my line here. My saw wasn't quite where I want it to be. Move a little bit more material. And then with this, I can just thin it all out until it comes down to the thickness that I want it to be. Make sure. Yep. So take off a little more. Any questions?
Nope.
Usually, I end up being much closer than that right off the saw, but usually I have a saw that is, yeah, not usually. I'm usually using a saw that I just haven't had time to set it up right now. But then I end up wasting time on this. That's kind of the way woodworking works. I could be one of those woodworkers who shows perfection every time, but I'm not. And there we go. That is the same thickness as my chisel, except I need a little bit more on this side. I think I'm ever so slightly off on that line. Yep. Just a little bit right there. Okay. One side, two side. Three side, it's the same thickness as my chisel all the way around, and I'm playing connect the dots from side to side at any point. I know the tenon, theoretically, should be exactly where I want it to be. Now, the mortise. How do we get rid of the material in the middle here? For that, I like to just chop it out, and I'm going to use a hold fast. Find a hole that it works in. I'm going to set this up on here and lock it down in. I push it up against the end of the hold fast so that I can pound on it towards the end and remove all of that. I'm actually going to use a chisel that is slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch, just to make it so it's not jamming in there, and then I can clean it up as needed in a moment.
What's up?
Child poking
Do you
in.
need something?
Come on.
Do you need something?
Come on, wake up.
What do you need?
Oh, why is technology issues? There we go. So now, I'm going to grab joinery hammer, and I'm going to move in a little ways away from my line. I'm going to stay off at about a 1/16 inch or so. Chop in a little ways, come in from the end, pop out that piece, and just go down slowly, piece after piece, till it breaks. I'm going to go down about halfway, just doing this. And I really enjoy this. Anytime you get to pop out these big pieces and be relatively precise in what you're doing, I find it to be very, very enjoyable.
When you get to the point, I have questions.
Yeah, what you got?
Let's see. Pit Snipe asked, as you square up the tenon, do you have to be sure to work both sides to keep it centered?
I don't try and keep it centered. I try and keep it to the lines I drew. Because I'm not trying to move the actual sides of the tenon around. I'm just trying to bring it to where it should be. And in that case, the first one I tried to cut right on the line. And because my saw was going wonky, I realized on the next one I'm going to stay a little ways away from the line. That gave me a little bit of wiggle room. And that meant the other side, I had to take a lot of material off of that side to bring it down to where it should be. So I hope that answers the question. And mine actually aren't quite centered. They're visually really, really close. But that's why when I set it up, I didn't actually center the chisel accurately in any way. I just put it on there and marked it. As long as I'm referencing off of the same face, then they'll come together. The mortise and tenon don't have to be in the center. They just have to both be the same distance away from the face. So once we've gotten that, now we need to cut down really close to that line. Let me zoom in a little more. Show you what this looks like closer. Oh, I did that thing again. There we go. Oh, I got the eye sensor on. That's why it's doing it. There, I can turn that off. So let's put this in. I'm going to go about halfway back towards my baseline. And chop down. And now I'm going to go right into that line. Now, the tendency is to try and keep it absolutely perfectly vertical. And that's a good thing to have. But honestly, I like to undercut it just a little bit. Why? Because it really doesn't matter if it's perfectly flat, as long as it's dead on the line here and the same on the other side. Now let's loosen it up, flip the board over, and we can do the same thing again from the other side. Again, start it a little ways away from the line, then chop in from the end, and go down again. Any other questions?
Yes. John Williams asked, is there a risk of shifting the tenon off-center by adjusting the thickness only on one side?
I think that's what we just talked about.
Okay, sorry. I pulled both questions at the same time.
Nope, that's fine.
Oh, they're asking if you're on the wrong camera.
Am I?
You're on the big one. There you go.
There we go.
Okay, then my questions are not necessarily project related.
Okay, let me do this then. So now I've gotten that out, I'm going to go halfway back to the line. And I don't care if the tenon is centered. I want it to be where I marked it at. The marks are important. Centering, not. Okay, a little bit more. I'm just going to undercut this just a hair. Just tip the chisel back a bit. And to test the undercut, what I can do is I can put the side of the chisel in, and I'm going to touch the side here and then lay it down, and I should be able to touch this sidewall and this sidewall without it rocking in the middle. And in that case, I'm touching both of them. So I know this one won't work because my saw went a bit wonky on me, but theoretically, this actually goes in like this.
Okay, we can't really see it.
What's that?
There you
Sorry.
go.
Here, back this out a little bit. And it's not far off. Actually, that side's nice. I'm tight over here. And I can see inside there's a place where it bows out, and I've got a bow in there I need to remove. So I'll put this back into here. The fun of working with that. I'm going to get a slightly larger chisel, and I'm going to start it here, close to the edge, put my weight over it. Let me flip back to this one. And I'm going to kind of put it into my chest and lean in and just shear it down. Just trying to hit that high spot in the middle. And in this case, I've got a line. I stayed a little ways away from it. Now I'm going to go right into that line. The stabbing motion is actually a really nice skill to learn because it actually gives you a little bit more control. You're just giving it enough force to go to the next stop, rather than putting pressure into it and suddenly it releases and you go past.
I'm so glad that people are not just listening to that on audio. And
Actually, I have at least 2 different blind people who watch my videos or listen to my videos. And so I'm always keeping them in the back of my brain thinking, maybe I should be a little clearer on what I'm saying there. So let's see what we got here. Okay, that's nice. So we've got, do this. It's sliding in here nicely. I'm just hitting something over on this side. Yep, I'm hitting a bump in there. Because I know my tenon is good. I hit my lines all the way around. I'm in the thickness of the chisel I should be. And so I know it's good. But this is the problem. And yeah, see I can move in about that far on this side. I come around to this side and I can move in about that far. So that lets me know there's a little bit in here. Oh, here, let me show you another option. And if you're really just dialing up on it, you can knock the camera around. And I can actually just bring in a file. And I love using these curved tooth files. Nerix makes them. I think I got this one from Tay Tools. And they're great for cleaning up an inside surface really nice and quickly. And let's see. Where was the one? Oh, right here is where I'm bumping, this side. And again, I'm not moving the walls, I'm just putting them to where they should be. So, okay, I can move down here, but then it's starting to spread. So I know my bump is at the bottom, and it's in that far. So it's like right here, I have a high spot inside on this cheek. Actually, let me come down vertically on this one then. And so I'm trying to find where the problem is and don't hit the places that don't have a problem. And again, if you undercut it a little bit, it's not going to cause you any issue. And I should come in with this chisel now that I have it all cleaned out because I made it to fit this chisel. And I should be able to slide this all the way up and down, end to end, and it should and fit in. And it's looking really good here and here, but these are spreading out. Let me show you what that looks like. Come on. Wrong way. You can see it's spreading out here. It's splitting this apart, not splitting, but spreading it. And what I could do is I just could come in and clamp it out, and it'd be okay. But I want to find the spot that's making it spread. So if I put it together like that, it actually works really nicely. So why is it one direction and not the other? Is the tenon a little fat there? No.
Well, you have a super chat.
I have a super chat. What do we got?
It's just super chat. He's just throwing money at you.
Well, thank you. I like it when people do that.
Well, I think it's more for me because the question was, did I miss mom jokes?
And this is the point at which you get frustrated and you figure out what is going on here. And I have a tendency to want to like, oh yeah, I can take off material here. And then, ooh, I can take off material there. And that's where you make gaps. And so I'm trying to go slowly at it and try it in different directions and put the pieces together and see where is it working, where is it not working. Because if I can put it together like this, that's nice. It's not spreading, it's not gapping that way. That's a good fit. But why isn't it a good fit when I move it into here? And it's good down to this point. So there's got to be something inside here that's touching on. So I can use that same trick of putting the chisel on there and see, is it rocking in the middle anywhere? Yeah, there it is. I've got a fat spot right there. So I'm just keeping my eye on it. Here it is. And it's just like a tiny bit of fibers sticking out on one side that just spread it out. And so that should be enough. I'm going to hit it with the file just to make sure. See, which side was I just working on? I was working on this side over here. And the nice thing about working with a curved tooth file is it doesn't dig in. It's not like removing a lot of material. It's more or less hitting anything that's sticking out. So it's kind of smoothing off the surface. Okay, let's try this again. So 3, 4. Ah, there we go. Now we got a good fit. Tiny bit of spreading, but that's well within the range of clamp it and call it good. Here, let me show you. So this one, is that in focus?
It's pretty good.
There you go. And you can see it's spreading out a little bit of a gap there, but when it's clamped, it goes right out. So that means there's probably just a shaving of a fiber in there that's sticking out high. I could spend a little more time and work on it. But the nice thing is with a clamp, you can get rid of that pretty quickly. So there's a half lap. That's what you want. Happy. Yeah, so we've got not the half lap, bridle joint. I should know, as I said it a few times tonight. Next time we are going to be doing a regular tenon, and then we are going to be doing a through tenon. Let's see, and then we've got the dovetail, the keyed dovetail, and then we're going to be doing, actually, no. Next week we are doing the mitered bridle joint. Taking the bridle joint and adding a miter into it. So from the outside face, it looks like a miter joint, but from the end, it looks like a bridle joint. And on this side, it looks like a miter joint. Mitered bridle joint. So that will be the fun. But that won't be next week. It's going to be
we have a special guest
3 or 4 weeks from now. So next week, we actually have a guest coming on. If you've been watching YouTube Shorts at all, you've probably come across this Irish guy with a really cool brogue, Owen. Mine's based on his last name. Really cool guy. He does a lot of green woodworking, a lot of timber framing. So we're going to have him on for an interview next week. That'll be a fun one. I'm looking forward.
But we're doing it earlier.
Yes, we will be doing it at 5 p.m. Central Time, so 6 p.m. Eastern, because I don't want him to be up at 1 a.m. He's still going to be joining us at I think it's 11 p.m. his time, something like that. So thank you. Then the week after that, we're going to be gone, so I don't think we're going to be having a live. And then the week after that, I think we have that's the Q&A weekend. And so it's going to be a while until we have another one. But we'll do this eventually. What questions we got?
Not project related.
Did you have a mom joke for Dad Gammon?
Oh, I do have a mom joke. All right, ready?
What you got?
How do you make a water bed more bouncy?
What?
You add spring water.
Yeah.
Should I give him an extra one because he joined late?
Yeah, what you got?
Okay, hey, good. Did I tell you about the dating group I joined for arsonists?
No.
It's great. They send me new matches every day.
Yes.
I thought you'd like that one. All right, you got two, Dad. All right, off-topic questions.
Okay.
Jose Morel, do you have a Stanley? I don't know if it's supposed to be a 44. It's typed out 444 dovetail plane.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Stanley 444 is a really weird looking little plane. Kind of looks like a shoulder plane, but it's got a couple different dovetail attachments so that you can do a sliding dovetail. It has an attachment so you can actually go in and make the female and the male side of the dovetail. Sounds like a really cool plane. From what I have talked to and other people, it's really fiddly to set up, but once it's set up, it does it well. Kind of like a Stanley 55. The problem is they didn't make that many of them, and so they're very rare. They're hard to come by, and I've never actually had a chance to play with one. So, if someone has one they'd like to loan me for a while, I'd love to play with it, do a video on it, and that would be a lot of fun. But no, I don't have one. So, sorry, my opinion on the matter is still up in the air. What's next?
All right, Idle Hands Workshop asked, I just received a nice four-piece set of Defiance Chisels number 1233R. What are your thoughts on the lower end Stanley chisels like these?
That was right when they were starting to get into the point of having standardized steel, and so they're decent. They're not amazing, but they're far more reliable than you'll get in a lot of older chisels. But they're not the best in the world. On a scale of 1 to 10, from Harbor Freight to Nerix Richter, in my book, it would probably be somewhere around a 6, 6.5, something like that. So, yeah, they work well, and if you treat them well, they'll last you a lifetime. What's next?
All right, last question. Thomas Smith asked, is there a difference between a sash saw and a carcass saw?
Well, yes. That's a sash saw is crosscut, and a carcass saw is crosscut. And so you think they're basically the same, but a sash saw is bigger in both dimensions than a carcass saw. Carcass saw is shorter and long, not as long. Shorter and shorter. So I used to love my carcass saw. It is easier to learn because it's smaller, it's easier to control, but it is limiting because it's smaller. And the more skill you get, the more you tend to like the bigger ones because they allow you to do more. But the bigger the saw is, the harder it is to control, and therefore the more you have to have a little more skill into it. So I tend to like the sash saw more than the carcass saw since I've gotten the skill to actually run it. But other than that, they basically fulfill the same aspects in joinery. But I'd say like 6 or 7% of the time, this isn't quite deep enough and the sash saw works, but it really isn't that often. So, yeah.
All right, Dennis Meko threw in a last-minute question.
What's that?
How do you sharpen and adjust the cutter on a Stanley 77 doweling machine?
I actually haven't had a chance to play with that one yet, so stay tuned. I have the parts. I have about 70% of the parts for one, and I haven't had the money to buy a whole one. So yeah, stay tuned. Someday I'll get all the parts and we'll have some videos on it. Is that the last one?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, then let's wrap it up, and we will see you next time, 5 p.m. next Tuesday, and we will have Owen on and have a good time chatting with that. So thank you everyone for coming, and until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.
Got it.